Oh, hey. You know, here in the US, it's coming up towards our most uniquely American of holidays, the 4th of July. And you know, kids, that usually means for a lot of people that the cuisine of the day is going to be something barbecued. But if you're like me, you might not necessarily have access to a grill. But I have an idea. Today, for our 4th of July meal, we are going to be serving up some pulled pork. Pulled pork is a perfect alternative if you do not have a grill for the 4th. It is easy to do, does not require a grill, but still gets that delicious barbecue flavor that everyone craves this time of the summer. So join me today as I make this delicious barbecue recipe. Today on the Blue Wizard Cooks. Well, kids, without further ado, let's make some magic. Beautiful. Now, we're gonna start with our rub. It's a dry rub that we're gonna be putting on our pork shoulder that we're going to be using for this pulled pork. So inside of this bowl, this small bowl here, I already have 1 tablespoon of brown sugar. And to that, I am going to be adding in 3 tablespoons of smoked paprika. Not only is that going to give it color, but it's also going to give it a nice smoky flavor, like we did use the grill, even though we didn't. To that, I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of garlic powder, 1 tablespoon of onion powder, 1 tablespoon of salt, a tablespoon of celery salt, a tablespoon of dried mustard, and last but certainly not least, 2 teaspoons of cayenne. Now this looks like a lot of rub. It's because, well, it is a lot of rub. But we're going to use most of it with our pork to make sure it has a nice, fantastic, delicious flavor. And we put a lot of stuff in here, and I think that that's good because you want, you know, a nice complex flavor in your pork. Pork is a nice blank canvas. It doesn't have a really, you know, big, bold flavor of its own like beef does. And so you really can, you know, map out whatever flavors you want. Beautiful. Now it's time for us to rub our meat. Now, the pork that I'm using here is pork shoulder, also known as pork butt, which is a relatively cheap cut of pork. But we're going to make it sing by cooking it nice and low and slow and covering it with our delicious spice rub that we just got done making. Typically speaking, you're going to want to get about anywhere from 7 to 9 pounds of this pork shoulder or pork roast, or pork butt rather. I was not able to find a full 7 to 9 ounce piece. I could either find a package of 2 7-pound pork butts, or I could find these 2, which were half of that. So these are called half butts, all right? And they're only 3.5 pounds a piece. So I just got 2 of them and I'm gonna put them together. I'm going to take our rub and sprinkle it all over our pork butt, pork shoulder, whatever you wanna call it. Same stuff. And I really want to rub that in there. Make sure it gets all nicely coated with that rub. We got put a lot of flavor into that rub, and we want to make sure that it all gets into our pork. So I'm going to rub it over, and I want to get it into every nook and cranny that I can find. All right, perfect. I've gotten the pork rubbed all over with our dry rub. As you can see, it is very well coated. Now, if you wanted to really get a huge depth of flavor, then you could let these pieces of meat sit in the fridge overnight in order to develop those flavors and let a lot of that just sort of seep into the meat. But I'm not gonna do that because I'm trying to make things a little bit faster. But if you wanted to get even better flavor, even more, you're going to want to, again, let that sit in the fridge overnight. But we're gonna move on right now, right after I wash my hands. Be back. All right, now it's time for us to get ready with the cooking of our pork shoulder. And for this, I'm going to be using a slow cooker. Now, of course, you could do this in the oven and cook at a very low temperature for a very long time. However, the little problem is that we're in the middle of summer, and I don't think anybody wants to be turning their hot oven on in the middle of a hot summer. So instead, I use the crock pot just because it keeps my kitchen a little bit cooler, because we are going to be cooking this for about 7 hours, okay? And so that's going to take up a lot of time, all right, for our kitchen for it to be hot. We don't want that. All right, so I'm going to take my pork shoulder and throw it into the slow cooker. Just sort of nestle it in wherever it fits. Perfect. Now this is a lot to be putting into the slow cooker, but I promise you it's gonna work out, all right? And then for our liquid, because generally speaking, you don't wanna be cooking anything in a slow cooker just dry, okay? And so we're going to add a little bit of liquid. I'm gonna be adding in 1.5 cups of beer. This is a light beer. Now, if you're like me and you don't drink, then you don't have to use beer. You could use apple juice, apple cider. You could also even just use water. We have so much flavor into the pork already that you're still gonna get a good flavored pulled pork even without the beer. But I think that the beer in this case does add a nice flavor to it, and we are gonna cook off all of the alcohol over the very long time that this is going to be cooking in our slow cooker, okay? So I'm gonna be using the beer for this. But like I said, if you don't wanna use the beer, that's okay. Use some other liquid. 1.5 cups of liquid, that's the thing that's important. All right, now I'm gonna cover this up, and I am going to set my slow cooker to high, and I'm going to set the time for 7 hours, okay? And so yes, this is gonna be cooking for a very long period of time, but it's going to get our pork shoulder nice and tender and fall apart and able to shred. It could take anywhere from 6 to 8 hours. I'm splitting the difference, putting it right in the middle at 7 hours, okay? So we'll check on that then. But I am going to be sharing with you actually another recipe today, kids. You're going to get 2 for the price of 1. While we are waiting for this pork to cook, I am going to show you the recipe for my delicious coleslaw that we are going to put on top of our pork butt, our shredded pork, pork shoulder, pulled pork, that's the word. We're gonna put on top of our pulled pork sandwiches, all right? So let's clean all of the rest of this up and get out the ingredients for our coleslaw. Okay, now kids, this actually started off as my grandmother's recipe for coleslaw, and I loved it so much that I asked her for the recipe. And when I was talking to her over the phone, this was a long, long time ago, she told me measurements like, okay, so add a cup of the sour cream, a cup of the mayonnaise, and then add enough sugar until it tastes right, enough vinegar until it tastes right, and so on and so forth, enough salt till it tastes right. So basically, I went and I made sure that I made all of the measurements for the way that I like it, which is with a little bit of extra vinegar, a little bit of extra vinegary pop. But my uncle, on the other hand, he would rather have it be more creamy and less vinegary. So basically what I'm saying is that you can adjust the ingredients to what you like and what you enjoy. This is the way that I like it. And that's really true with any recipe. Make it the way that the recipe writer told you to do it in the first place, and then if you don't like it, make some changes. Make it your own, make it better. All right, so anyway, we're gonna start with our dressing for the coleslaw, and for that, I'm going to start with sour cream. Now, I'm actually not using sour cream today. Instead, I am using Greek yogurt because I have found that it's a good substitute for sour cream, and I can buy the non-fat version. All right, and so I'm gonna use Greek yogurt instead, but the original recipe and the way that I make it for my family, as a matter of fact, this is just for me, all right, is that I will use sour cream instead. And so for that, I'm gonna be using 1 cup of sour cream. In this case, again, Greek yogurt. 1 cup is also 8 ounces, kids. So they sell 8-ounce packs of sour cream in the grocery store, so you just wanna get one of those. I'm also going to add in 1 cup, yum. I'm gonna be adding in 1 cup of mayonnaise. And I think, oop. All right, and add that in. All right, now is the point when you can start to play around a little bit, all right? And so what I'm going to add, my proportions are, I like to add 1/2 cup of vinegar, 1/4 cup of sugar, 1 1/2 teaspoons of salt, and 1 teaspoon of black pepper. I'm just gonna take and mix that up, and I'm gonna use a whisk because that'll get all of the little chunks of sour cream, Greek yogurt, and mayonnaise mixed in really well. Now the next thing that I'm gonna add in is I have chopped up here a sort of a medium dice of 1 large yellow onion. I use the yellow onions because I think they're a little bit more sweet than the white onions. And then last, but of course certainly not least, I'm going to be adding in 1 bag of tri-colored coleslaw mix. Now you can of course go out and get you a head of cabbage and shred up your own coleslaw, but ain't nobody got time for that. So I'm just going to be throwing in the bag of the pre-shredded mix. And I like the tricolor because it's pretty. All right, and then give that a nice toss. Beautiful. Now this looks and smells, and I'm sure it tastes delicious already. All right, but it tastes even better after you have let it sit for at least an hour in the fridge to let all of the flavors mingle together and let the cabbage, you know, sog up just a little bit. You still want it to have a little bit of a crunch to it, but we do also want it to be a little bit more limp. But as it happens, kids, we still have another 6 hours and 43 minutes on our pulled pork. So I'm gonna throw this in the fridge and I will see you guys back when the pork is done. All right, guys, our cook time is up. Now, the cook time for this recipe, like I said, is anywhere from 6 to 8 hours. So technically, any time in that 6 to 8 hour period, the recipe should be done. That's one of the nice things about cooking in a slow cooker is that you have a little bit more flexibility when it comes to your times. So it's been about 7 hours. That's how long we cooked ours for. And now our pulled pork should be ready to shred. So I'm going to, ooh, the smells, ooh, that's coming off of it. First off, my house just in general for the last 7 hours has smelled fantastic. But just taking the lid off, you get a nice huge whiff of that smell. And it's just fantastic. Okay, you know it's done because as I'm sitting here trying to pull this out, it's already shredding, okay? So I'm just gonna pull out pieces at a time. And we're gonna shred this before we sauce it up a little bit. Now, you notice that I didn't take any of the excess fat off of the pulled pork at the beginning before I stuck it in, because I want that fat to add a little bit of flavor, but I am gonna remove the excess fat when I'm shredding up the meat now. So I'm just taking 2 forks and going through and shredding up the pork. And I notice I've got a little bit of a fat cap over here. I'm just gonna take some of those fatty pieces and put them off to the side. Incidentally, kids, if you didn't know, this recipe that I'm sharing with you actually came out of a request, a viewer request. My aunt actually requested that I share this recipe because I made it for a 4th of July picnic for my family a couple of years ago. And so I'm sharing it with you now because she asked for it in a comment of one of my videos. So if you have any recipe requests and things that you want me to show you, leave me a comment down below. I'm more than happy to share any recipes and take any suggestions that you guys have. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and shred up the rest of this pork and I'll show you what we're doing after that's done. All right, guys, so our pulled pork is all shredded and in that bowl off to the side. And I was just skimming some of the excess fat, or I guess a lot of the excess fat, off of the top of my juices that I have still in my slow cooker over here. Because we're gonna actually use some of these juices to, sort of sauce up our pulled pork over here. Because though you can eat this right now, and it's perfectly delicious, fantastic. I like a saucy pulled pork. So we're gonna add a little bit of barbecue sauce to this. Now you can add in whatever barbecue sauce you happen to enjoy, whichever one is your favorite. But the one that I like to use is Sweet Baby Ray's Sweet Vidalia Onion. That is my favorite barbecue sauce. But again, guys, use whatever type of sauce that you want, whatever one that you enjoy. All right, if you're at different parts of the world than the Midwest, which is where I am from, I know that there's lots of different types of barbecue sauces that people enjoy. And so use your favorite barbecue sauce for this. Now it could be a prepackaged one, or heck, make one yourself. And this part, guys, it's a little bit subjective as to just however much you think is necessary. So I'm just gonna squeeze over some of this barbecue sauce and toss it in with the meat, and we'll see how much we need. Depends on how much meat you have, how saucy your sauce is, and all that sort of thing. All right, so I'm mixing that in and it looks almost right. I think that it's gonna end up just taking the rest of this bottle, and then we should be good with the sauce. All right, I'll give that just a little taste. One last thing that I want to do, just to make sure that we're taking it up just that little bit, is to make it, even though it's perfect on its flavors, I do notice it's a little bit tight. And so what I'm going to do is just take a little bit of a ladle full of those juices that are still in my slow cooker. Probably add another ladle full as well. And that's just going to loosen it up. And that's the reason why I took all of that excess fat off, because even though I want to add and make this a little bit more saucy, I do not want to add any more fat into this recipe. Beautiful. And I think that that is a perfect consistency. Now guys, you might be saying to yourself, this seems like it took a really long time for a day that I'm supposed to be having a party. Guys, I know, I hear ya. All right, but here's the nice thing. Take this that's finished right now, put it back into the slow cooker crock that you have over here with a couple of extra ladlefuls of the juices, and then you'll be able to heat it up the next day in the crock pot. All right, so even though we made it the day before, it'll still taste just as good the next day, heated up in the slow cooker. If you just have a couple of extra ladlefuls of those juices on top, it'll stay moist and delicious for the next day. So you can totally make this ahead. All right, y'all, let's bring it all together. So I have my pulled pork in this bowl over here, our delicious coleslaw in this bowl over here, and I'm gonna get started with my sandwich with a nice whole wheat roll that I have toasted, because you should toast your buns, kids. If you are not toasting your buns, I feel like you need to start asking yourself some very serious questions, like, why don't I want to be happy in life? All right, so make sure you guys are toasting your buns. It always makes the sandwich better. I'm gonna add on a nice, generous helping of our delicious barbecue pulled pork. Oh my gosh. Oh, my mouth is already watering. And then I'm gonna throw on some of our wonderful, creamy yet also tangy coleslaw. Guys, it's a winner if I ever saw one. Winner, winner, pork dinner. Oh my gosh. There we go with the bun on top. That is it, kids. Have you ever seen a more gorgeous sandwich than you see right here? Here, take a look at this, kids, close up. Look at that. Let me hide behind so you, it'll focus on the sandwich. Focus on the food, camera. Hello. Hello, gorgeous. Oh my gosh, it just looks awesome. Now, for the taste test, because of course the proof is in the pudding. Here we go. It could bring you to tears. It's so good. Guys, the pork is delicious. It's wonderfully tender, perfectly juicy. It has all of the complexity of flavor of those spices, but yet also has the sweetness of the barbecue sauce that we added. And the barbecue sauce we added just in the right amount so it didn't overpower any of the fantastic seasonings that we added. The coleslaw has a nice still crunch to it. It's delicious with its creamy, tangy flavor. Guys, I mean, it's just too good. It's just too good. Well, kids, if you like this recipe and you want me to make others like it, please feel free to give me a like down below. Also, don't forget to hit the subscribe button as well as the little bell for notifications, so this way you're notified every time that I post a new video. If you'd like to catch up with me on what else I am doing out there in the food world, you'll want to follow me on both Instagram and Facebook at Joe the Blue Wiz. And kids, I have been making a point to post something every day on my social medias. So you should definitely go and check it out now, because now's the time to join, kids, while the iron is hot, while I am getting into a groove posting every single day. So check it out. If you'd like this recipe or these recipes, because you got two for the price of one today, or any of my other recipes that I've shared on my channel, or just additional recipes that I like to post on the internet, make sure to head straight to bluewizardfood.com, or just get the link in the description below this video. Well, kids, that's all that I have time for here today on The Blue Wizard Cooks. Remember, you do not have to be a professional chef or even a wizard in order to make magic in your kitchen. Bye now.